Shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? I call the Honourable the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Yesterday, the Prime Minister told the House that, quote, "We listen to intelligence agencies, we don't try to second-guess them." But this morning it was revealed that the Home Affairs Department advised the government to list Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organisation more than 2 years ago. Prime Minister, when this national security advice was received, on what basis did the government reject it?
Order. Give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition for the question. There have been a range of comments made in just the last 24 hours. On Monday, of course, or Tuesday. Monday we received the information and the advice. Monday afternoon we had the appropriate committees enacted. By Tuesday we had got our personnel out of Iran to safety and had expelled the ambassador here from Australia, along with 3 other diplomats from the Iranian embassy. And we received bipartisan support, I recall, for that action. But it appeared that it didn't last too long. The member asked about information and when it came back. And indeed, to quote someone, yes, there were calls to list the IRGC back when I was the chair of the Intelligence Committee, which was from 2017 through to late 2020. The government makes those decisions. The government makes the decision to amend the criminal code and then list a terrorist organisation.
The Prime Minister will pause. I'll hear from the Leader of the Opposition.
A point of order on relevance, if I may, Mr Speaker. This is a question about the government's decision to reject national security advice 2 years ago. The Prime Minister is not in order.
Prime Minister needs order. We don't need anyone assisting in the corner. The Prime Minister was asked about the decision that was taken and what basis that was. He'll need to make his answer directly relevant and ensuring that he complies with the standing orders, but if he's got information to the House about how the decision was made, he's entitled to do that.
Certainly very relevant, Mr Speaker, because the member for Canning went on, the Shadow Minister for this area, went on to say today, and for whatever reason the coalition government did not want to. In fact, we had briefs as to the reason why, which I can't discuss here. That is what he said, understanding, because he understands intelligence.
Order.
I stand with the government.
Order. Leader of the Nationals.
I stand with the government, as does the rest of the coalition. That's what the Shadow Minister responsible said this morning. Went on to say as well, not just yesterday, it backs up his statement yesterday, the decision was a good one. It was backed up by forensic intelligence provided by ASIO and other partners.
Prime Minister is just going to pause. The Leader of the Opposition has raised a point of order on relevance, so I'm not quite sure. She's only entitled to one point of order on relevant.
As to whether the Prime Minister is following your previous instruction, the statements of the member for Canning more than 2 years ago are not relevant to the question.
No. You can resume your seat. We've been down this path before. There's no ruling that I'm going to make around this. So if you were not happy with at the time when I brought the Prime Minister back to order, that would be the time to take action. You can't go back in time and ask for a second chomp at something. Order. But we're just going to ensure order. We're just going to handle this respectfully. It's an important issue. The Prime Minister is going to continue and make sure his remarks are directly relevant regarding on what basis the decision was made.
Mr Speaker, I've gone on to quote someone who knows something about intelligence and national security about why intelligence information isn't the subject of public debate. That was the quote from the member for Canning. Indeed, the member for Barker backed this up. This is what he had to say on the basis of our response. I congratulate the Prime Minister on his response. It's been swift, it's been decisive, and he's been congratulated for that. The member for Lindsay was on board.
It's Prime Minister's time.
So was the member for Riverina. One by one, they've all been out there saying they support the...
Order. Member for McNamara is warned. Trying to hear from the honourable member for Bonner.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on its commitments to help young Australians get ahead, and is there anything getting in the way of this agenda?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Bonner for her question, and indeed my government is delivering for all Australians, and that includes young Australians, to give them an opportunity to get ahead and achieve their goals in life. And we've been doing a lot of that in the last week, Mr Speaker. We've cut student debt by 20%, of course, benefiting 3 million students and apprentices, saving an average of $5,500 each. We, of course, have legislated free TAFE so young Australians can get the skills that they need for the jobs that they want. And today, importantly, legislation has passed both houses now to enshrine penalty rates into law to protect weekend and overtime pay. So if you're a young person who relies on penalty rates now, you can trust they will be there in the future. This is so important because penalty rates are the things that can make a difference for people, whether they are people working full-time and just working on hours that disrupt their quality of life. If you're working on a Saturday night or on a Sunday, if you're working on a public holiday, you should be compensated for what you are giving up, and that is what this legislation will ensure. We've also, of course, fast-tracking the 5% deposit plan to the 1st of October, wiping years off the time it takes young first home buyers to save a deposit and getting them into a home quicker. So whether you're a young Australian at work, you're looking to buy a home or you're paying off student debt, this government has your back through all of these measures to make a difference. But we've even got your back if you are not working on the weekend but you're at the local pub. Because one of the things we've done is frozen the draft beer excise, so you and your mates can have a cheaper pint this weekend to make a big difference as we go forward. Now, lower student debt, higher wages, supportive housing policies and cheaper beer. That's what my government is about, and it's what we are delivering for young Australians.
The call to the member for Wannon.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Under the Albanese Labor government, electricity prices have exploded by 39%, including a 13% rise over the past 12 months alone. Can the minister explain to the House how a 39% increase in electricity prices can result in a $275 reduction as you promised?
The member for Macarthur. Give the call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his question. And as the Treasurer very eloquently pointed out to the House yesterday when the inflation figures were actually released, as the ABS itself makes crystal clear, to use their words in relation to the annual increase, this is due to the timing of when the extended Energy Bill Relief Fund rebates were applied in some capital cities. That's what the ABS said yesterday. Of course, that's the case, that the rebates are paid in different months, and that reflects in the figures in different ways. It's also the case. There are other reports. There are other reports out over the last week that the opposition's chosen not to mention, like the Australian Energy Regulator's State of the Energy Market Report, Mr Speaker, which refers to energy prices and points out that Australia's coal-fired power plants are ageing, increasingly costly to operate. Many require high levels of maintenance and refurbishment to keep them running. They are prone to unplanned outages, sometimes prolonged outages, and that makes them increasingly unreliable. Heading into spring and early summer, prices remained higher than the year before, amid higher rates of brown coal outages. So these are the sorts of issues that the government and the energy grid is dealing with when we're dealing with the fact that under those opposite, 4 gigawatts of dispatchable power left the grid and only 1 gigawatt came on.
Look, there's just far too much noise for anyone's liking. I want to hear from the manager of, the member for Wannon on a point of order. The member for Wannon.
Thanks, Speaker. It goes to relevance. The question wasn't about us on this side. It was about the 39% increase in electricity prices and the $275 you promised to reduce Australians' power bills by.
The member for Wannon is correct. He wasn't asked about alternative policies or approaches. The minister's going to have to confine his remarks to government policy, and you can do compare and contrast, but this is not a free-for-all just to talk about the opposition's policies, as the balance of the answer will now be provided.
Absolutely, Mr Speaker, and I was referring, of course, to the report this week of the Australian Energy Regulator about the Australian market today, which is also dealing with the impacts of 4 gigawatts of dispatchable power leaving the grid over the last decade. That's what the government and the energy market operator and everybody involved in the energy system is dealing with. The fact of the matter is, when this side of the House has an opportunity to take a decision that puts downward pressure on energy prices, we take it. Whether it's energy bill relief or whether it's the drive towards more reliable, renewable energy, that's what we do. That's what we do. When those opposite have a choice, they embark on the most expensive form of energy, nuclear, or oppose energy bill relief, as they've done 3 times.
The Leader of the Nationals is testing my patience, so he's going to have a short spell here, otherwise he'll have a short spell outside. I'd now like to hear from the member for Macarthur.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on its election commitments for low-paid workers?
Call to the Minister for Employment and the Minister for Workplace Relations.
Well, thank you, Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for Macarthur for that question, but also the powerful way he stands up for workers in his electorate, particularly low-paid workers. Of course, in our first term, the Albanese Labor government passed landmark workplace relations reforms which delivered on getting wages moving again for Aussie workers. We continue to stand up for Aussie workers, making it with clear election commitments that we are now delivering on. One of these election commitments was to make a submission to the Fair Work Commission for a real wage increase to the minimum and award-reliant workers. It was one of the first actions we took, and from the 1st of July, award and minimum wage workers saw an increase of 3.5%. Since we've been in government, the pay packets of minimum wage workers on average have increased by $9,120. And I'm pleased to report today to the House that we have delivered today on another election commitment, protecting overtime and penalty rates with our bill passing the Senate. We made this election commitment because there are currently applications before the Fair Work Commission that would take workers' pay packets backwards. Our Labor government won't stand by and see wages go backwards. Critically, the passing of our legislation means that penalty and overtime rates for around 2.6 million workers are now protected because of this Labor government. Now, for workers like Anthony, who I met today when this bill was passed, he said the fact that penalty rates are now protected is going to provide a sense of relief for a lot of Australian workers. It's going to be just one less thing to worry about. All in all, this is a great day for Australian workers. Now, Anthony can be reassured that his penalty rates and overtime are now protected. Indeed, all of those who rely on the modern award safety net, many who are women and young people, can be reassured that with our action, penalty and overtime rates are protected. Because if you work unsociable hours or weekends and rely on the safety net, you deserve to be compensated. Now, our government is getting on with the job of delivering on our election commitments. Of course, in addition to boosting wages for low-paid workers, our government is delivering tax cuts for every single worker. This is because, at our fundamental core, our Labor government is committed to Australian workers earning more and keeping more of what they earn.
Before I call the member for Curtin, I'll just do some acknowledgements and welcome. I'd like to inform the House that present in the gallery today is the Honourable Bill Yan, MLA, the Treasurer, Minister for Logistics and Infrastructure and the Minister for Housing and Construction for the Northern Territory. We also have a delegation of mayors and industry representatives from South Australia, and I'd like to inform that in the House, in the gallery, is a delegation of young leaders from across Australia and the Pacific taking part in the National Leadership Forum. And also, I note that Stuart Henry, the former member for Hasluck, is joining us today. Welcome to you all. Give the call to the member for Curtin.
This is a question for the Prime Minister. Today, parliamentarians from across the House again heard personal stories about gambling harm, including from a Western Australian whose brother died by suicide after struggling with gambling addiction. The government hasn't yet even provided a response to the Murphy inquiry into online gambling, let alone implemented any of our key recommendations. Is the delay due to successful lobbying by powerful interests, and what do you say to people experiencing gambling harm who are still being bombarded by gambling ads?
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Curtin for her question, and with respect, I say that that is not correct to say we haven't responded. We have done more as a government than any government in Australia's history since Federation. As simple as that. BetStop, the self-exclusion register, has been in operation for 2 years as of last week, making an enormous difference. We have launched the National Self-Exclusion Register. At the end of July, it has recorded 46,369 total registrations, including 30,750 active exclusions. 39% of current registrants have chosen a lifetime ban. 39%. The problem that we see with gambling isn't someone having a punt on a Saturday at the pub. It is ongoing addiction to gambling, which can be incredibly harmful. We have banned the use of credit cards for online wagering. We have established mandatory custom ID pre-verification for online wagering. We've implemented monthly win-loss statements. We've strengthened classification of video games that contain gambling-like content. We'll continue to work on these areas. As we've said, we want to break the connection between wagering and sport. A lot of that has been done voluntarily as well by the sporting organisations who understand the damage that can be caused. Gambling is legal in Australia. We respect people's right to have a punt, but we also have a responsibility to make sure that the industry acts responsibly, and that's what we're doing.
Give the call to a member for Barton.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on its election commitment to make medicine cheaper for Australians? Why is this so important?
Call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the NDIS.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for Barton. Through her work earlier at St Vincent de Paul in New South Wales, every day she saw the sorts of choices that households under cost of living pressure have to make, and she's brought that experience as well as her deep compassion into this place, Mr Speaker. In her contribution to the government's Cheaper Medicines Bill, the member for Barton relayed a story of a young mum that she met door-knocking in Hurstville, a mum who skips her own medication to afford medicine for her young child when her child is sick. In a similar vein, the member for Griffith relayed a story of Paris, a young local pharmacist from her electorate in Brisbane, a story that Paris told her about a patient who was cutting her antidepressant tablets in half in order to space them out. Paris's customer juggles medicines for cardiovascular disease, for diabetes, as well as her depression, and struggles to afford all of her medicines. And so many of my colleagues, Mr Speaker, told these stories that really explain why this government has put so much energy into making medicines cheaper, because cheaper medicines are not just good for your hip pocket, although they obviously are. They're also good for your health, because Australians should not be forced to make choices between filling a script that their doctor has said is important for their health and some other essential household expense. And today, Mr Speaker, I'm so pleased to report that the House passed that government's Cheaper Medicines Bill. Another example of this government delivering on the commitments that we made to the Australian people at the election in May. And this law will cut the maximum co-payment for a PBS script to just $25, Mr Speaker, the same price it was all the way back in 2004, and half the price it would have been next year if the government had not been making medicines cheaper. Now, of course, Mr Speaker, this is just the latest wave of our measures to make medicines cheaper. Last term, we slashed the maximum amount that pensioners and concession card holders would pay for all of their medicines across a given year by 25%, a measure that already has delivered tens and tens of millions of additional free scripts. We finally delivered 60-day scripts, Mr Speaker, twice the amount of medicine for the cost of a single script, and we've frozen the price of scripts for concession card holders and pensioners all the way to the end of this decade, Mr Speaker. Those measures alone have already saved Australians more than $1.5 billion in co-payments at their local pharmacy counter, Mr Speaker. But today we showed that this government is determined to do even more.
With a call to the honourable member for Hume.
Deputy Prime Minister, the Coalition is deeply committed to the Australia-US relationship. Between Sunday and this morning, the DPM's office has provided two conflicting statements about the nature and formality of this week's meeting with Secretary Hegseth. Since this morning, there have been three different explanations about the nature and extent of the meeting. Deputy Prime Minister, was this a meeting with Secretary Hegseth or just a photo opportunity, and was there an outcome beyond the photo?
Order. 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 Members on my left and the members on my right, the member was heard in silence. And I'd like to hear from the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defence, and he has the call.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. I genuinely do appreciate the question from the member opposite. And Congressman Smith, welcome to question time. You're in for a treat. The question that we have just heard, the question that we've just heard from the Shadow Minister, is just another example of how the Liberal Party, a party which actually has a proud history of governing this country, is today completely broken. Now, the Pentagon itself has made clear that there was a meeting between myself and Secretary Hegseth. The Pentagon itself today has made it clear that that meeting was coordinated in advance. But what we've heard through the course of this week is those opposite firstly suggesting that there wasn't going to be a meeting at all. Then there's a little bit of a debate about whether it's a meeting or whether it's a happenstance. Presumably those opposite think that the photos that have been published were magically generated by AI. I mean, those opposite are an absolute joke. Mr. Speaker, the Shadow Minister, in the question that he just framed, said that the alliance between Australia and the United States is a matter of bipartisan support. It has been the case that the parties of government in this country have actually, irrespective of whether they are in opposition or in government, have supported the nation in its relationship with the United States.
Look, order. Order. No, I haven't given you the call, and I'm not particularly inclined to take this point of order because it can only be about relevance. And the Deputy Prime Minister specifically answered the question about the meeting and gave context about that. So, just. The point of order is relevance. Order. The member for Hume has the call.
The outcome of the meeting.
No. Once again, member for Hume, if the Deputy Prime Minister is answering the question and giving context about the exact topic you were asked about, anyway, there's no point of order. That's my point. The Deputy Prime Minister has the call.
Mr. Speaker, I think we all understand that the question from Captain Conspiracy over here was whether or not the meeting actually.
Order. No. The order. The House will come to order so I can hear from the Manager of Opposition Business.
Look, we do know why the Deputy Prime Minister is angry. We understand it's been a bad day. But there's been several versions of this meeting. We don't know which one is correct. We've asked a simple question, but he has an obligation to refer to members by their correct titles, and he did not.
Yep. I want to hear from the Leader of the House.
He said that you can't use any term at all. That term is so much nicer than what his own colleagues say about it.
Look, order. Order. When the House, we are going to bring the House to order. I know it's Thursday, but we are going to bring the House to order. Questions have been asked. Entitled to do so. The Deputy Prime Minister is going to continue with his answer, and I don't want any more interruptions or interjections, and I want everyone referred to by their correct titles.
Mr. Speaker, the relationship between Australia and the United States should be above partisan politics. Parties in this country, parties of government in this country, whether they have been in government or in opposition, have come to this place wanting whoever is in government to succeed in our relationship with the United States. That's certainly the spirit that we brought to bear when we were in opposition. But right now, those opposite are desperately hoping that the nation fails in its relationship with the United States, and that is a disgrace. The fact of the matter is that those opposite should grow up and return to the place which has been occupied by the Liberal Party in the past, and to support the alliance with the United States and do so in a bipartisan way.
Order. The member for O'Connor will leave the chamber under 94A. We're not having just snide remarks given out across the chamber. We've had enough of it. We're going to lift the tone for the remainder of question time. So everyone watching in the gallery and everyone around Australia is watching as well. I'd like to hear from the honourable member for Cornwall.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing, Homelessness and Cities. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to address housing challenges, and is the Minister aware of any risks to the government's plans?
Give the call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I want to thank the member for Cornwall for his question, and I know he's incredibly proud that to date 2,360 people in his local community have got the opportunity to get into their first home with the backing of the Albanese government. And, Speaker, I know that he can't wait to get back to Greenvale and to Broadmeadows and talk to his community about the landmark expansion that we are making of this program, Speaker. 5% deposits for every single first home buyer across this country. The days of a 20% deposit for a first home, they are gone, Speaker, and we're going to be very proud to deliver it on the 1st of October. Now, Speaker, it's been a really important 2 weeks for us on housing, as you've seen our government build on that $43 billion agenda that we've got in place. We're focused on 3 things, Speaker: building more homes, making it better to rent, and getting more Australians into home ownership. And of course, Speaker, you've heard me talk about that real progress we're making on this agenda for Australians. 500,000 homes have been built since we came to office. Speaker, year on year, housing approvals are up 30% in our country. In less than 4 years, we've got 28,000 social and affordable homes in planning or construction, with 4,000 social and affordable homes completed. Remember, Speaker, we're comparing ourselves to 9 years where the Coalition built 373 homes around this country. Absolutely disgraceful. Now, Speaker, on top of that, 1 million households around the country benefiting from almost a 50% increase to Commonwealth rent assistance. And of course, Speaker, as I've mentioned to the Parliament every single day this week, 180,000 Australians who have already gotten into their first home with the backing of our government. Now, Speaker, we know there's more work to do, and that's why just in the past week we've announced this landmark expansion to the 5% deposit program on the 1st of October, and of course more work to build more homes more quickly through the immediate actions that we're taking out of the Economic Reform Roundtable. Now, Speaker, just to refresh the Parliament's memory, that includes the pausing and streamlining of the National Construction Code and the fast-tracking of environmental consideration of more than 26,000 homes. Now, Speaker, there's a really clear contrast to be seen here. The last 2 weeks, our government spent our time building more homes and expanding pathways to home ownership, and those opposite have spent that fortnight in a complete chaotic mess. Speaker, they've spent their time not talking about real policies that actually exist, but making up scare campaigns about taxes on housing that don't exist. They've spent their time in the Senate not trying to build more homes, but trying to stop the construction of 80,000 new rental homes. On the 5% deposit program, on Monday the Leader of the Opposition said she loved it so much that it was her idea. At the same time in the Senate, the Shadow Minister was calling it bizarre and ridiculous. Speaker, we're focused on housing and we'll continue that work because that's what Australians elected us to do.
Give the call to the member for Page.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, given the challenging security arrangements at home and abroad, what steps has the Prime Minister taken to repair our deteriorating relationships with Israel and the United States?
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
I find it absolutely extraordinary that the Shadow Minister for Trade has asked a question about our deteriorating relationship with our most important partner, the United States, in the presence of a US congressperson. I refer to the comments of the Deputy Prime Minister who spoke very clearly about the parties of government in Australia and the way that we deal with serious issues. Today we have had question time begin with a question seeking essentially information from our intelligence agencies. In the answer that I gave, I quoted the former head of the Intelligence Committee, who on 2GB just this morning outlined why, at that time and even since, he would not give that information about why decisions are made and that intelligence basis. That is the way that it operates between adults. When it comes to the follow-up then, we had a question to the Deputy Prime Minister alleging that somehow, like the fake moon landing or something, that meetings that were held by the Deputy Prime Minister with the Vice President of the United States.
Order. Yeah, the Prime Minister will pause. All the members on my right, I'd like to hear from the manager.
Well, the Prime Minister is answering question 1 and question 2, but he isn't answering the current question. By his own confession, he's answering the previous question. So I ask the Prime Minister to answer the question that you have been asked now. Because it's not commentary time, it's not lecture time. It's not commentary.
Resume your seat. Yeah. The point of order was on relevance. Yeah. I took that straight away. And I don't know why that's funny. Prime Minister is going to continue with his answer to make sure he's being directly relevant to the question was asked about the relationship between Israel and the US.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I thought he was going to move an extension of time. The relationship with the United States has been above partisan politics. And when Leader of the Opposition, I received a phone call from then Prime Minister Scott Morrison, in 24 hours' notice, came to Canberra without knowing what the meeting was for, had a briefing from our defence agencies and intelligence agencies about the proposals that were there in place about AUKUS, kept that confidence about that briefing, convened a meeting of my shadow cabinet just 1 hour after the announcement, and then had a full caucus meeting to back in the AUKUS arrangements. That is how we dealt with the US relationship. We continue to be proud of the fact that the relationship with the United States is our most important, and it is extraordinary that you would come in here and attempt to undermine
time it. Has concluded. Order. We're just moving on. We're just moving on. Order. I'd like to hear from the member for Braddon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government. How is the Albanese Labor government helping regional Australians into home ownership after a decade of being ignored?
Give a call to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development and Local Government.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker, and can I thank the member for Braddon for her question, but also for her extraordinary advocacy for her community. If anyone has met the member for Braddon, you will know she is an extraordinarily fierce advocate for her community. She's very hard to say no to, and she is a terrific representative. Whether it is from Devonport, for Ballarat, to Bendigo, to Leichhardt or Lingiari, Labor represents the regions across every single corner of this country. And this evening, I absolutely look forward to welcoming the Prime Minister to the regional city of my hometown of Ballarat for one of the many Bush summits being held this week. The Prime Minister has attended all of the Bush summits, and I'm very proud he was in Wagga this week and he'll be in my hometown of Ballarat this evening. And I know that one of the things that my community and every regional Australian is looking forward to hearing about is the Albanese government's delivery on housing for the regions, something that was neglected under those opposite. Our $43 billion plan for housing is making a real and substantial difference across regional Australia. In particular, the decision to bring forward from the 1st of October this year the expanded regional home guarantee scheme. And this will mean no income or location caps, all regional Australians being able to benefit from that policy. Regional first home buyers being able to get into the property market with a 5% deposit without having to pay lenders' mortgage insurance. For far too long, regional Australians have been left behind under those opposite. We saw a decade of ignoring regional Australians' housing issues, no plan for housing, no plan for, frankly, investing in significant infrastructure and no real support for regional communities. We are doing the hard work, building the homes, building infrastructure and backing regional growth with real funding. We're all getting regional Australians into more homes and sooner. Since introducing the Regional First Home Buyer Guarantee in 2022, we've issued over 23,500 guarantees in the regions and supported 38,500 regional Australians into home ownership. In my own hometown of Ballarat, thanks to Labor's scheme, 1,000 families, 1,000 people have benefited from getting into a first home because of the policies of this government. It, of course, comes as on top of our $1.5 billion in investing in infrastructure to really get housing moving, particularly in the regions. The opposition had a decade to act on regional housing. All they did, frankly, was leave it in crisis, and we are once again having to clean up their mess.
The call to the honourable for Moncrieff.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How has the government managed to find so many millions of dollars in taxpayer money to fund inner-city cycleways, including for bike lanes in Sydney and Grayndler, but so much less to support South Australia's response to the once-in-a-generation ecological event that is the devastating algal bloom? Why do countless communities and small businesses in South Australia, many here today, Prime Minister, have to pay for the cost of Labor's inaction?
Order. Order. There's far too much noise. The member was entitled to be heard in silence. Not happy with the level of interjections. Okay. The Leader of the Opposition. I'm just saying I'm not happy with the level of interjection, so that's not a time to interject. Order. I'll give the call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks very much. I met with all of the councils earlier today and they thanked the government for the work that we are doing when it comes to South Australia's algal bloom. This is an ecological event that is directly related to the impacts we are seeing right across our continent of climate change. What we have seen here is floodwaters come through the Murray-Darling Basin, out through the Coorong, into the ocean at a time when extra nutrients have therefore gone into the water, and the water is 2 degrees hotter than it would normally be at this time of the year. This is not something that is the result of any single government action. This is something that I've met with the South Australian government on. Importantly, we have provided a range of funding. Indeed, every bit of funding that we have been asked for has been provided. But it is also including $20 million to support the South Australian government to not just combat the effects of the algal bloom but improve preparedness for future events. Now, does anyone think that abolishing our commitment to net zero and action on climate change will make these events more likely or less likely to happen in the future? And at a time where those opposite are running a relentless campaign from some in the National Party. It's even brought the member.
Order. I want to hear from the Manager of Opposition Business.
Relevance again, Speaker.
No, resume your seat. No, resume your seat. Resume your seat. No, not entertaining it. If you ask a question or anyone asks a question and the Prime Minister is giving facts and figures about the topic and then he's going to go into reasons behind that, he's entitled to do that. We're not just getting up and saying, I don't like an answer and that's my point of order. Because that's what we're doing. The Prime Minister has the call. And I can simply say I won't take any points of order, which other speakers have done. The Prime Minister has the call.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. This issue is directly related to climate change. The people that we met this morning understand that it's directly related to climate change. The scientists who we met with last week, who are undertaking practical work, understand that this is directly related to climate change. And those opposite are busy. We don't know whether, according to the taker of the point of order, has said that they're having a 9 to 12-month experience over whether they'll take support for net zero will continue. But it is extraordinary that they're actually becoming more right-wing on climate than Scott Morrison was.
Order. We'll hear from the honourable member for more.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Defence Industry. How does the Albanese Labor government's recent decision on new frigates help build a future made in Australia and keep Australians safe? Why was this decision so important after a wasted decade in defence industry?
Give a call to the Minister for Defence Industry and the Minister for Pacific Island Affairs.
I thank the member for his question and applaud his commitment to Aussie manufacturing. Mr Speaker, the Albanese government has selected the Megami class as the preferred platform for our general-purpose frigates for the Navy. This frigate decision is the biggest capability decision made by this government since announcing the optimal pathway for our submarines. It delivers on our plan to double the surface combatant fleet, giving the Navy much greater firepower. It's a plan backed by the Albanese government's $55 billion investment over the decade to deliver more ships more quickly. And it's a plan to build 8 of these next-generation stealth frigates right here in Australia. And it's supported by tens of billions of dollars of investment that we will make in Western Australia as part of our commitment to continuous naval shipbuilding. And I'm proud to say it will support over 10,000 well-paid, high-skilled jobs in WA and thousands more across Australia as Aussie businesses build these next-generation stealth frigates. Speaker, this truly is delivering a future made in Australia. Now, this decision was made months ahead of schedule and is an example of how we're accelerating critical defence capability projects to keep Australians safe, just like how we accelerated $1.3 billion in counter-drone capabilities to protect our troops and bases, a capability those opposite ignored when they were in power. Speaker, we'll sign the frigate contract early next year, and the first frigate will be delivered in 2029, and we'll have 4 frigates by 2034. That's 4 times as many frigates as the former coalition government planned, and with the first new frigate delivered 5 years earlier. Let me repeat that, Speaker. 4 times as many warships, and the first 5 years earlier than the plan of those when they were in power. Now, Speaker, I'm asked about a wasted decade. Our record on defence capability stands in stark contrast to the coalition. Under us, we have we'll have the largest surface combatant fleet since World War II. Under them, they delivered the oldest fleet the Navy has had in the history of the Navy. Under us, we're creating tens of thousands of jobs as part of continuous naval shipbuilding. Under them, they closed 2 shipyards in Australia, costing thousands of jobs in Melbourne and the Hunter. Speaker, the Albanese government is getting on with the job of keeping Australians safe and delivering a defence future made in Australia, delivering more well-paid jobs for Australians, while those over there can't be trusted with defence or national security.
Concluded. Give a call to the member for Calais.
To the Prime Minister, the 2022 Central West New South Wales floods saw extraordinary acts of courage and service across our communities. Eugowra was the scene of the biggest helicopter rescue in Australia's history. Despite this, the National Emergency Medal is still not available to emergency responders, volunteers and community workers who performed with such distinction in that crisis. Yet those serving in disasters that have hit other parts of Australia are eligible. So when will our community heroes get the recognition they deserve?
Good call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Calare for his question, and as he knows, I went to Eugowra on 2 occasions during that period, including with the member. We provided substantial support in partnership, not just to Eugowra but to places like Forbes, which were then, I think the redistribution might have had an impact, but were in the member for Riverina's electorate at that time as well. And we worked with the state government to ensure that that community that had been devastated. It was quite extraordinary seeing the power of the floodwaters lifting up whole bridges and moving them, steel structures, literally hundreds of metres from where they had been for many, many decades. In addition to that, the impact, of course, on the human impact was devastating on that community. But it was terrific to go with the member and to see firsthand the resilience of those communities, and to be able to thank emergency service workers and others. At the worst of times, we always see the best of the Australian character, and we did on that occasion as well. I'll take that on notice, that question by the member, and we'll respond appropriately to him, and I undertake to do that in the next week. I know that he is very passionate as a local member in being a strong advocate on these issues, and that those communities certainly have suffered a lot, but I thank him for the question, and I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.